Well, hello and welcome to Talk Leadership with Cedrick. You know, everybody needs a little TLC. Talk Leadership with Cedrick is where we focus on leadership and personal growth with business leaders, educators, and local thought leaders. Our goal is to introduce our audience to leaders who are making an impact with innovative ideas. You know, our guiding leadership principle is the law of contribution, which says growing yourself enables you to grow others. You see, you can't give what you don't have. So first, you must grow yourself in order to grow others. We believe that outstanding leaders like yourself will help us to help others. So tonight, I have a dynamic leader with us. He's a personal friend, but more importantly, he's a dynamic leader. And I want to introduce you to him. So, you know, every week I like to do a proper introduction of my guests. So let me do a proper introduction of this gentleman, and you're going to see that he is dynamic. He's charismatic. He's an awesome leader. He's intellectual, and you're going to see that as I read his bio. But his name is Mr. Darryl Gresham. To some, he's known as Gresh. So you can call him Gresh tonight. Yep. As he is known to his Gresh, as he's known to his friends and colleagues, is a longtime tenured professional commercial leader within the clinical diagnostics market. Although his career began as a mechanical engineer for the then McGraw Edison Power Systems division, after graduating from Carnegie Mellon University, it wasn't long before he discovered the world of sales was his true calling and his passion. Gresh first joined Abbott Diagnostics as a sales rep in the famous Buffalo district in 1985. Now, I was graduating from high school then, guys.
Hey.
Over the next 25 years while at Abbott, he held many key roles and leadership positions within the commercial organization, including chemistry specialist, product manager, sales manager, marketing director, area director, European training and development manager, and eventually culminating his journey as the general manager of South and Sub-Saharan Africa for the diagnostics division in Johannesburg, South Africa. After experiencing leadership roles in Europe and Africa, Gresh returned to the U.S. in 2010, where he relocated to North Carolina and joined bioMérieux as the vice president of U.S. clinical sales. Then in 2019, he joined QIAGEN, where he currently holds the position of vice president, head of global commercial performance, headquartered in Germantown, Maryland. He is an active member of the National Sales Network, NSN, and the 100 Black Men organization. Additionally, he serves on the board of the Triangle Volunteer and Leadership Center in Durham, North Carolina. Darryl holds a Bachelor of Science degree in mechanical engineering from Carnegie Mellon University. So the brother's pretty smart. And he completed executive programs in sales leadership at Northwestern University School of Management and at Duke University. Let's welcome Mr. Darryl Gresham to the show.
Hey, Sid.
Thank you very much. You know, we should start off with our terrible towels, right?
Oh, I know.
We are both Steeler fans.
I have my terrible mask right here. 6-0, 6-0.
So, folks, you know, we're going to talk about a little bit about the Steelers at some point here. And I see Ken Thornton, who is he's joining us via YouTube, and he's also a Steeler fan. So, you know, it's going to be a great night tonight.
That's right.
So, Gresh, hey, thanks very much for coming on the show. I definitely appreciate it. So tell our listeners about your journey to leadership and how did you really get to where you are today?
Oh, geez, that's a long story and some parts a short one. Well, I think, as you said, I started off as an engineer many years ago at Carnegie Mellon University. In fact, my first few jobs was as an engineer working at Westinghouse Robotics Division and then into McGraw Edison. The interesting thing about this was I was back then, I was I thought engineering was everything, because back then, this is so long ago, said when you were little, we were making like $18,000 a year. So this is like back in 1980, which I thought was a whole lot of money at the time. And it was. And it wasn't until I found out what some of our salespeople were making for the products we were designing. And quickly I said, 18,000 and what they're making. And, it didn't take long to make that switch. So that's when eventually years later, I got with Abbott Diagnostics, got in sales, and that started. And then I just kept going through the whole commercial side of the business in different positions.
Well, that's awesome. And I know you had a long, prosperous career here with Abbott. See, I still said here with Abbott Diagnostics.
I still say the same thing. I still do. After 25 years, it's hard not to say it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, you've had a long executive level corporate career. Help our audience understand how the different roles that you held help shape your leadership style today.
Wow. Okay. Well, in Abbott, let me say what's started with Abbott, because Abbott's really, like you, that was the bulk of my career was with them. It's almost 25 years. And I owe everything I know today to the experiences I had there. And I tell that to everyone because it was such a dynamic organization around so many dynamic people. I went through various different experiences, obviously being in sales, getting involved as a specialist with capital equipment. I went the marketing route for a short time and the product manager position, 2 different product manager positions, then management and on and on. A lot of what I learned happened to be probably from some of the mistakes I made in the past was one. Some of the many good people I learned from to see what good looks like. You don't know if you're good until you know what it looks like. The way it was so competitive and always comparing yourself to the best helped a lot of that. And having good leaders, some not so good managers, it was so much of variety what we got there that you couldn't help but learn and prepare yourself for a future role. So by the time I got, say, even here where I'm now, I still use a lot of what I learned there. I still rely on some of those experiences of what good looks like, what failure looks like, and it helped a lot. So there's so many different steps along the way through that Abbott career. And then, of course, subsequently through my other organizations, the same thing with Bill Mary U. But that was the start of everything. I would say that was a part of the pivotal point for the career.
Awesome. So, some people are reluctant to, in your career, you took different roles, and
right.
In careers, some people are reluctant to take lateral jobs or maybe even take a step backwards in order to move forward. Right. So did you ever have to do that? And if so, how did it help you as you prepared to move forward and upward?
Okay. Well, I tell everyone this, that a lateral or even a so-called step back is still a step forward. And how it helps you is simple. It gives you more experiences, thus making you that much more of a tractable a candidate. Here's a saying I always tell the young people I mentor. If you were looking to buy a home and you looked at 2 homes and they both cost the exact same price, one home has a 3-car garage, the other home has a 1-car garage. At the same price point, which one are you going to purchase? You're going to take the one that gives you the most for the money, the 3-car garage home. Even if you don't own a car, you're going to take that one at the same price. And I look at the human value the same way. The more experiences you can bring to the table when you're looking to move on, whether it's upward or laterally, the more positions and experiences you bring can only prepare you for all those unforeseen things coming later. I went from being a sales rep to a specialist, the typical Abbott career, still in sales. Then I went to product management, a regional product manager. So that was one experience. Well, I took a lateral to come in-house to be it was a senior product manager, but it still was a product manager role. So laterals. Later, then when I became a district sales manager at the time for our chemistry and small and hematology group, then we got involved with big hematology. I took a lateral to that position. So now there's 2 district sales managers, same positions, 2 different groups or organizations. So those were 2 laterals. And then coming back in Chicago, went to marketing, took 2 marketing positions, marketing manager, then marketing director. So you see, there's a theme here that I always adapted. Even with sales training, which that's my passion, is teaching and helping others how to do this. I've done it 3 times in 3 different roles. So I will tell everyone, you don't always have to take a step forward. Sometimes one lateral, one back will eventually get you where you want to be if that's what you want to do. But at the end of the day, be a 3-car garage. That's the bottom line. Be a 3-car garage. Everyone wants a 3-car garage, especially if that's the same price as a single.
Absolutely. I like that. Be a 3-car garage. I love that. So I put on the screen there, Ken said, cleaner than a board of health. And
Ken, I'm still at work. Okay. You remember these days when you work long? I'm still at work here. It's 20 minutes to 8, and I haven't had a chance to go home yet. So I still got bags under my eyes and everything else. I just hope I don't pass out before the interview's over.
Yeah, well, for those that know Gresh, he's always going to be a sharp dressed man when he walks in the room. So you got to be prepared for that. And Miss Sheila Waters said hello. She's giving a shout out to you. She's tuned in tonight as well. So leading during crisis is a critical moment for any organization. And you would say that, leading during 2020 is definitely leading through crisis, right? So from a high level perspective at the C-suite level, help us understand, your experience, what's your experience like leading during crisis? As a leader, you always have to show that calm, cool, collective for the team. But who do you go to in that moment? What are your thoughts in that moment dealing with that crisis?
Okay, we've had a few. It's been public for years now. Probably the biggest crisis I had to lead through was when I was Bill Mary U, and we had our blood culture issue. There was a crisis where we couldn't supply blood culture bottles due to some manufacturing issues. That was catastrophic because majority of the market was us and a competitor. So we had between the two, you either use one or the other. So when we could not supply, that became just catastrophic for all of our real large customers. And that was probably one of the biggest crises that I ever experienced, particularly as a leader for the group. Being head of sales, because I had to not only calm the salespeople in the organization, but I also had to deal with irate customers, et cetera, that you have to go through. So in the moment of crisis, you ask, how do we lead, or what did we do? Couple things. One, for me, I always told the organization, sort of a biblical saying, this too shall pass. So even though it's very rough time right now, it will pass. There is an end. 2, you cannot control it. So minimize getting so emotional about it. Stay focused, stay calm, and weather the storm, regardless how hard it is. And I've always kept telling everyone, this will be over soon. And it may not seem that way. Like we probably don't think 2020 could get be over fast enough. At the end of the day, when you have these large crises, you have to minimize your emotion. Stay as factual as you can. When you're talking to customers, you're talking to each other, keep to the facts, and just keep your emotions calm. And I think that's the best way to go through it. For me, to manage any major crisis, I have to step away. Because if I don't step away, it's going to stay with me. And then whether you're taking it home, to your social life, to whatever you do, it can eventually consume you. So for me, my calming is step completely away, calm down, don't think about it at all, and just attack it the next day. That was, at least it worked for a while. We went through over a year of that scenario, and it was tough for a lot of people, very emotionally tough for not only the customers, but for the employees as well. And constantly I would tell them, keep calm, it will end. Just think about the days when it's over. And one last thing, find a bright spot. Regardless what crisis you have, regardless of the scenario, there is something somewhere within your organization or your team that is doing well. I mean, there's a yin and yang to everything. There's a positive and negative. So when things go bad, there's always a balance. So find the other side. When it's down, find the up. Take solace in that up for a while, and come back to the bad. But there's always a good spot. Those who usually fail at this, they allow the negative to consume them and everything and snowball. and then everything's bad. Now here I am saying this, and granted, I wish we could unplug 2020 and do a reset. Can we just hit Control Alt Delete and start over? Really, I wish we could. So, what a perfect question, because right now we're all in some type of emotional crisis, whether it's not so much work, but it's home. And this is one of the few times that the country has invaded our private homes. I mean,
right.
The discussions we have now, from Thanksgiving to Christmas to the family members, we are all talking probably more than we ever had about things outside the home. Now, while that has some merit to have these discussions, educate, but these conversations aren't going well. They brutally become on one side or the other. So if there ever was a time to seek the calm, and as you may know, and I know Kenny knows, I'm a heavy cigar smoker, so that is my calm. That's how I get away from this. And of course, I jump on the Harley, get my cigars, and life is good. And play a little golf every once in a while.
That is awesome. Talking about calm. As a guy who I worked for when I was in global marketing, Dan Stretler, he's on. He said hello to you as well. He said sounding good, looking good as always. But Dan was one of those guys that was under stressful conditions was calm. So it's always important for those leaders. Thanks for that advice, especially for those young sales reps that are out there that may be trying to figure out how to navigate, especially in this times. I mean, COVID really changed the dynamic of everything, right?
Yes, for salespeople, I would say for those in our business of the whole medical field, when you're used to interacting with customers in a medical space, COVID changed that. COVID took away the one thing that we pride ourselves on: is our human interaction.
Right.
Okay, so now you don't have it as often, and we had to change our style. We went to virtual. Now it's virtual phone calls all the time. We almost became telesales in a way with a little more flair. You went virtually, and so it's a little different to build that bond so real quickly, real quick.
Mm-hmm.
And the things we used to slowly build a conversation up, find some common ground, all the old things we were taught, that's out the window. Now it's like, what do you want? And get to the point. So that changed. In the corporations, I think we all have to change. Not even the whole idea of working from home office has changed. While most salespeople have been used to that, and all of us grew up having an office at home. Now, all of a sudden, everyone's at home, and it's different. So, but you know what? We're resilient. We change. We may not like it, and we always, as humans, we're resistant to change until we figure that it works well. I think there's going to be a lot of companies that are not going to have as much brick and mortar for some positions or office positions because they found out, this all works.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And this is what I was talking to a young leader last week about. I said, look, a few years ago and for a long time, organizations were like, oh, no, you have to come into an office. We have to have an in-person meeting. We can't do business without being face to face. And COVID, come 2020, COVID made everybody realize, you know what? We can do this virtually. Yeah. Right.
Well, we could go kicking and screaming. So let me put a caveat to that.
Sure.
I'm 62, so I'm old school. I still like having my office. So, of course, now we got these new open air offices. I'm still trying to wait for them to build my wall right here and put a door on it. I have no drapes. I mean, there's no couch. The damn desk raises up and down electronically. What happened, Sid? There's no wood in my office anymore. So I still come to the office because, you know what? I don't know any better. I want to get up in the morning, put on, and then I don't have to think about what I wear. The next suit on the rack. Just grab it and go to work. Leave here, go get a drink, go home. I mean, that's life.
Yeah, you're funny. Yeah, absolutely right, though.
You didn't have these open office things when you left Abbott, did you? Remember, you had cubicles.
Yes.
There's no walls no more.
Yeah. Well, everybody's trying to be mobile, and in this era now, it's going to be even worse because it's going to be all virtual. So you'll be like, oh, man, when you see that person, you're like, oh, I thought you were taller than that.
Well, you know what? I tell you one thing though, for the young people, so this virtual thing is a wake up call. it's a wake-up call for all our younger people who refer so much on texting and Twittering, where you don't see someone, you don't get to have the vocal expressions, et cetera. So this is a wake-up call, because even though it's digital and it's all the electronic age, now I can see you and how I move, talk, my gestures, all are important. And for the younger people who are still wanting to, look down and thumb, hey, you can't do that anymore. The job interviews now, college interviews are done through Zooms. So it's a whole different thing. So hopefully for some of our younger people, they'll realize, hey, I do have to interact in a different way, just like my parents told me I should. Look up, shake hands, et cetera, digitally. So in a way, there's some good from this.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So you just have, you just have like this huge following. Ron Burke is saying, shout out to you. One of my good friends, Letty Johnson, just came on, and she loved what you're talking about managing through crisis. Ms. Johnson is here tonight with us as well.
Great.
And, James.
Ron's a Harley rider.
Yes, Ron is a Harley rider. He rides every 3 months, but
gotta get the Harley ring. Gotta get a Harley ring, Sid.
Okay, all right. Well, hey, you guys get on your Harley. I'm gonna stay on my Can-Am Spider, and I can keep up with you.
That's okay. Love you anyway.
So leaders come in all different types of packages with different types of strengths, right? Mm-hmm. So what strengths do you feel are important to be a successful leader?
Oh, man, there's so many. Just pick one. Let's see.
Give us 2 or 3 of them.
One, have people who will disagree with you, who will say no to you. The old term, I think, was having a yes man or whatever. I think as a good leader, you need someone who's going to be honest and say, no, that really won't work. Or no, I don't think so. Or that was a crappy idea. Honesty from the people who you work around and work with is, I think, one of the most important things. Because you can go down a serious rabbit hole if you have a narcissistic attitude and everything I say has to be right and you must do what I say. You need to have some people around you who will tell you the truth. That's one. And sometimes roll your sleeve up and demonstrate what it is you want done. Demonstrate what good looks like. It's interesting because we always seem to know when things go wrong. We know what failure looks like, and always ask the question, what does good look like? Whatever we're trying to plan, describe for me what good will be. And now we have an image. We get that image, we move forward to it. And if we're not going that direction, I need somebody to say, don't do that, and be honest about it. And a good leader will listen. You state your case. Now, I always talk about emotion and facts. And I love that because my statement is, have your facts, but you can stress them with emotion. You can use emotion to express them, but you got to have your facts. Because if you just go on emotions without facts, that's how you get your lunch handed to you.
Yes.
And that's something that we see that a lot now, and you're always going to see it where it gets emotional. Back to the calming of it. Just get your facts and have it together, and make sure those who support you, work with you, colleagues, they tell you what's really going on. They tell you the facts of it, and whether or not you are heading in the right direction, and just listening. I think that's the other thing. Just listen.
Listen.
Be a good listener. Be a good listener. I think a lot of people say that, but it's common sense, but it may not be common practice.
You hit that's the right key right there. It's common sense, but may not be common practice. I tell you what, man, we have so many former avid people that are just like logging on here. Angela Fry says hello. The great Joe Nimmers has stepped into the room.
Yes. Oh man, I haven't talked to Joe in a long time. Many years ago. So
Joe's a great guy, and I'm glad you tuned in tonight, Joe. So good leaders ask great questions also, right? Mm-hmm. Yes. So what are some of the best questions that either you have asked people or someone has asked you and you went, wow, that's a really great question?
Okay, that's easy one. This happened just recently. The best question I've had asked of me was with a plan or a strategy that I was laying out. And the question asked, if it fails, okay, can we undo it? Can we undo it?
Oh, okay.
Will we be able to undo what it's changed? I was changing the structure of the sales force. And so at the time, my boss asked me, I thought it was a great question. He said, okay, if this doesn't work out, will we be able to undo this without too much damage? So I thought it's a great question. And from that point, it always made me think later, okay, whatever we do, if it doesn't work, is there a plan B? But more importantly, if you're talking about moving people and it doesn't work out, let's not blame them. Just figure a way to undo what you did. And I always think that's one of the better ones. Now the questions I like to ask, and I still do this morning at 6:30 conference call, I said this very question when some of the people were positioning something to me, and I said, "Have you tried it out?"
Oh, yes.
Great ideas come. There's always a lot of good ideas, but have you tried it? I think that's important in the commercial world. We're talking sales and marketing. If you could put together a strategy, did you try it? Go to a few customers, in different countries, different areas, different cultures. Try what you are saying you want everyone else to do. Because if you haven't tried it, I'm a little leery about you bragging about how great it's going to be. There's a lot of things that weren't tried that were so-called great that did not work out.
Right.
So that's the question I've always asked. Okay, tell me when did you try it? What were the results? Give me the feedback. And the best question I've ever had was, can you undo this? And that one I still hear it in my head. That was maybe 15 years ago. And that person said it to me.
Can you undo it? I like that. So to my entrepreneur boot campers out there, you're going to hear that question in the next boot camp. Mm-hmm. Just remember that. Let's say, someone lands a sales job. Everybody wants to be in, they say pharmaceutical sales. They don't necessarily mean pharmaceuticals. They mean diagnostics, capital equipment or something like this, right? But they want to be in high performance sales.
Okay.
Right? So now they have the job. Give them one or two things that they should do to keep that job as they navigate the corporate ladder.
Okay, well, that's you throwing me all the soft questions. I spend a lot of time mentoring lots of different people, so that's why I'm used to getting variations of this. My saying is simple. Number one, this is 1 through 10. Stay focused on the bridge that is in front of you. Because if you try to skip the bridge in front of you, you surely will never see the one after. Meaning, stay focused on what you're doing. Whatever assignment you have at that time, put your focus, put your attention, and your effort into that. When you're trying to manage the corporate ladder, I've learned, and this is a general statement, but I think it's some other leaders would say is somewhat true. Good will be found. Meaning, you do good work, people will find you. You don't have to look for it. Good will be found. People will talk about you. You will always get noticed if you consistently deliver, successfully. You'll get noticed. You don't have to worry about anything else. So if that's the case, just focus on doing what you're doing right in front of you. I've seen too often mistakes made where we are thinking about that next position, that next level, that next step, and in the process, not doing that good of a job in the one we're in. Yeah. I asked someone recently want to talk to me about a promotion, and first question I asked is, oh, so how did you do last year? How are you doing this year? Now, if you missed your goal last year and you're not making it this year, but you want to be promoted, and that is the entry into the conversation. Well, say it, you be proud of me. I've gotten a little milder in my older age now, so some of the adjectives I no longer use. I learned to embrace having HR next to me when I talk to people. But every once in a while, I yearn for the old days.
Well, that's good. You're teaching them in a new millennial way, right?
Yeah, I text them that. I text them. So, what's your numbers?
So if you're not at 100% or higher, it's like, no, you're not ready for promotion. We'll talk about this another time.
Right. But on a serious note, that focus, when I say focus, just whatever you're working on at the time, let that be your priority. Understand what good looks like. Take a calming approach to it and go step by step. And let everyone else worry about it. Let everyone else be the judge of how good you are. It'll happen. Guys say good is good. Good will be found. Let others make it. I think Coach Tomlin from the Steelers was interviewed not too long ago, and one of the questions was asked about how good the team is, and does he think this is the best team ever? And his answer was, "I'll leave that for you guys to make that decision. We're just going to prepare for the next game." I thought that was brilliant.
Yeah.
Prepare for the next game. You guys do. That's everybody else's opinion of whether we are the greatest of all time, and that's not too far from what I think helps you navigate. The other thing is, besides staying focused, is this is excuse me, is taking assignments outside of or special projects or assignments outside of maybe what area you're in. Get involved in different project groups. Every organization, no matter what strategy they have or what project they're working on, they could always use some help in something. Everybody's shorthanded. So get involved in other things. That yields relationships with new people you don't know, which is a great thing. It yields you a little bit of a different experience, but importantly, it gets you some face time with people you may not have thought were ever important or were going to make a decision about you.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely love that. So right now we'll take a commercial break and we will talk about the mighty Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yes, we will.
You have to remind everybody that we're 6-0.
That's great.
So we have a segment on here that I like to call "Would You Rather."
Okay.
Right?
All right.
So here we go. Would you rather meet your great grandparents or meet your great grandchildren?
Ooh, I'm going to say great grandchildren, because if I meet my great grandparents, the stories they will tell me will probably put me in a different state of mind. I don't even want to know anymore.
Okay. All right. So would you rather be stuck in an elevator or stuck on a ski lift?
Well, it depends on how high the ski is, because I can ski.
It's up there.
How high the lift is. If it's not too high, I'll just jump down and be good with it. So there's a caveat. It depends on how high the ski lift is.
Yeah, it's not gonna get stuck right at the beginning. It gets stuck like when you're in the middle.
I'll take the elevator because I figure I could probably eventually pry the door open and get out somewhere. So,
all right. So would you rather go skydiving or bungee jumping?
Skydiving.
Yeah.
Bungee ends with a splat if things go wrong. Skydiving ends with a glide.
Yeah, well, they both could end with a splash under the right conditions.
215-pound men jumping off bridges on a rubber band.
So two more. Would you rather be an adult your whole life or would you rather be a kid your whole life?
Oh, I want to be an adult. No, I want to be a kid my whole life with my adult mind.
A kid, okay.
I want to have what I know now, except I want to have it in a body when I was younger.
So Joe asked a great one. He says, would you rather golf or go to the cigar bar?
Joe, you do both of those together. Oh, shoot. Well, go golf first and go have a cigar afterwards.
He's trying to have it both ways, Joe.
I know.
Ken said cigar bar. Absolutely.
Yes.
All right. Last one. Would you rather have $1 million in Amazon gift cards or $100,000 in real money?
Oh, I take the gift cards. You say $1 million?
Yes.
$1 million gift cards? Yeah, I take the gift cards.
Yeah, especially for Amazon, right? Because you're shopping on Amazon every day anyway.
100,000 I'm going to get you about 4 or 5 boxes of cigars anyway. Pre-Cuban embargo.
I'm thinking about trying to figure out how to invest $1 million gift cards. I'm going to figure out a way. You talking about cigars.
It's an investment.
Well, thank you for playing that segment of Would You Rather. So what role does networking play in matriculating the corporate ladder?
It's not necessarily who you know, it's who knows you. And that's what I found in the whole corporate thing. How do you find a way for others to know who you are? If If you don't network, sometimes you could, and particularly if you're just doing mediocre work, you could easily get lost and just be that person that comes in, leaves, and nobody really knows not only who they are or what they do. So networking plays an important role of getting others to know who you are. If anything, they know your name at the bare minimum, your name and what you do, which is more than what it was before you walked in the door. And then the other part of that is getting people to kind of understand you a little bit more if they didn't know what you were about, what some of your thoughts are. There's so many different ways you can network, whether it's social or even business networking. When I was younger, in the old Abbott days, networking consisted of, going out after work to bars, et cetera. And of course now, which I don't do that, but I do other types of networkings and organizations, whether it's volunteer organizations or with the 100 Black Men organization, et cetera, et cetera. It's the same goal, to get to know others and for others to get to know you and see what commonalities you may have to strive to put something together that could be mutually beneficial. But in the corporate world, networking is all about who knows you. Period.
Okay, awesome. So growth, we say in the leadership development space, growth has to be intentional. So what do you do for personal and professional growth?
Let me see. Well, believe it or not, I still like to think I'm growing. How I do it professionally is I've changed careers. When I say change, I changed the role in careers that I've taken. So when I left, spending 25 years with Abbott Diagnostics and that whole in vitro diagnostics field, I then went to bioMérieux, and my biggest attraction there was the fact it was a side of the business I'd never been in. I knew nothing about microbiology, and blood culture bottles, and that type of thing. So that was a whole new experience. So that was the attraction, and yet the growth. Felt like a kid in the candy store going there. I said, this is something I don't know, which made it very exciting. And then after 8 years of doing that, and then coming here to Kaizen, there's another side of the business which is brand new to me. This whole life science business. I knew nothing about it and was never involved in it. So I changed or developed my growth by going into ventures I knew nothing about. No. It's easier to just go do something that you're already familiar with. It'd be easier to go to another diagnostics and do the same thing. A lot tougher to go something that's completely new. So for that helps keep me young and keeps my mind, young and keeps it exercised. I think I read somewhere about your mind's a muscle, just like the rest of your body. So you have to exercise it as best you can. And at least for me, taking these different challenges in areas I formerly was never in has helped that. But I've used experiences that were gained along the way. Certain parts are the same. Leadership is still leadership. Relationships is still the same. In networking, all those fundamentals, but with a whole new set of challenges. So that's what was worked great for me. And that's why, look, it's 10 after 8 and I'm still at work. Why? Because I'm still kind of interested.
Well, that's awesome. Gresh, you've had a lot of different jobs and different, with the different companies that you work with.
Right.
What advice would you give to an emerging leader who's trying to find leadership opportunities and ways to fulfill their professional toolbox?
Well, one thing you do is find them in areas not necessarily at work. In volunteer organizations. I think that's some of the greatest ways to get some leadership responsibilities in a subtle way to learn something completely different. Leadership is leadership, but that's one thing I would tell some of the younger people. Get involved in outside organizations. We talk about NSN because you and I are both part of that, but I'm with the 100, of course, with the Volunteer Center in Durham, it's the same type of thing. You get exposed to so many things that are different. And given an opportunity to lead in a way that's still business related, but not your same core business, but it's still leadership. So that's the advice I would give them. Get involved in outside volunteerism and taking leadership role within the volunteer. Nothing can be more powerful than you doing something out of your pure passion. It's not for what you get out of it. Not someone's paying you to do it. There's no clock to punch and there's no one to fire you. You're doing it because you want to do it. And that to me is the most powerful. And I've always said this, when you stop doing everything just for money and do it out of your passion, that's when your best work will come out.
Absolutely. And that's exactly what I'm finding right now. So I agree with you 100%. So let's talk about mentors. One, so do you have a mentor? And if yes, what's been some of the things that the mentor relationship has helped impact your career?
Well, the mentor relationships were probably a lot greater in my younger days than they are now. I'm on the back nine of life now. Say it. Okay, we're on that back nine. We're heading back to the clubhouse here. But it was a lot stronger back in the old days than now. Although the people who I considered mentors before still are, and they became close friends. Here's something that a few people probably on here don't even know, and that is that some of my close friends and that I socialize with are really my mentors, and they don't even know that. And probably I'm not even going to tell them that and here's why they're mentors. One, they have multitudes of experiences. They've seen good, they've seen bad, they have failures and successes. But most importantly, they give me unconditional advice. They give me advice when I don't even ask them for it. But it's real. And I trust it. Because there's nothing to be gained from telling me something good or bad or whatever. Just tell me, here's what you think. And usually the way we do it, I'll be telling my scenario, we have a conversation, and they'll say, well, you should probably this and that. Not saying it as a mentor, just a conversation. Right. But I'm taking it that way, and they just don't know about it. And that I value a lot. And there's some very strong, powerful friends I have who are that way. Some, I know there's a gentleman I met back in college. There's several they were at Abbott. There's one that's on the phone now, I know, and there's a few others I've gained along the way. I go back, even my first boss at Abbott was Jim Walton. He was early on very instrumental in giving me advice on my careers and became a good friend. Then I started meeting others along the way. So the whole mentorship, I will say this about mentorship, it's talked about a lot. It's not done well, though. Mentorship takes work on both sides. And when someone asks me, hey, would you be my mentor? And I sit them down and say, look, this isn't I don't take it as buddy, let me just give me a call when you got a problem. Okay. We're going to do this. We're going to put it on a calendar. It's going to be scheduled like a meeting, whether it's quarterly, monthly, whatever the time frame, but it's going to be a routine that we both agree to. And the first thing we agree to is talk about what's happening, the good and the bad. I don't want to hear just the bad. I want to hear what's going good, because even if you're doing something well, you can still get some advice and some mentorship on how to do it better. Right. But it has to be scheduled. So I won't take on any or even consider it unless it's something of what I could say very structured. And even with people who I went to and said, hey, look, I could use some advice. And I've done that since I've been here, because it's a new business for me. And one particular person, we talk every other Tuesday at 10 o'clock in the evening, because we're overseas. And that's I treat it that way. So I think that to me is the way to do it. But it just take it serious. And too often, again, it's common sense, but not common practice, how we take that mentorship role. And being honest, I had a young man, I'll tell you the story real quick. A young man asked me to mentor him. And I think I was living in Germany at the time. So obviously we had a time zone, but I didn't mind. I don't care. If you need me, I'll do whatever. So I said, okay, fine. So we're going to talk. It was late night for me, et cetera, et cetera. And what ended up happening probably after 1, 2, 3, I think it was the 5th time we talked, and it was every 3 weeks. He tells me he was let go from his job. And so, of course, I'm like, WTF, where'd that come from? Last time we were talking how great things were. And then, a couple of weeks later, and apparently things that didn't go well. He had a performance plan and several things. I had a hissy fit, not because of what happened to him, because I'm like, where the hell was this conversation? So if we're going to have a relationship, you're going to tell me everything. And he said, well, I didn't want to tell you. I didn't want you to be disappointed. I said, the point of this is to manage the disappointments and to learn something from it. Had I known, we would have had a good conversation. So that was one of the things I always look back and I turn with. Just whatever's happening, but make it scheduled and stick to the routine. And then you can have a successful mentorship.
Absolutely love the nuggets that you just dropped, and several people said that. Awesome nuggets that you're dropping. Shatanya said that. Ken said that as well. People sometimes, like you said, don't take the mentorship relationships serious enough. Right. To be very intentional with it, right? And the mentorship relationship is really more on the mentee versus the mentor, right?
Yes, it takes work, and it takes work on both. And, sure. And I always tell everyone, don't have one mentor. I mean, go to many people. Anyone could be a mentor, sure. And if you really want to try something, ask the person who you know doesn't like you to be the mentor. Ask the person who knows not exactly your fan to be your mentor. You'd be surprised how that would change the dynamics of your relationship. And the challenge there is to get someone who wasn't a fan to become a fan. And when that happens, that person will be a powerful ally for you.
Yeah.
Don't always go to people you get along with or know or whatever. You have to go outside your comfort zone. I learned that early on. Those are some of the many mistakes. I could probably write a book on the number of things I messed up in.
That's awesome, because that's leading right to my next question. So you've had a successful career, a lot of different opportunities that you've done extremely well in, but we've all failed at one time or another as well. So tell us about a one failure that you had, and what did you learn from it?
Oh, okay. Well, early on, biggest failure I had. I don't know how many people even know this happened, but I flunked out of college.
Wow.
So I came out of Shenley High School. 76, and went to Carnegie Mellon. Let me set this up. At Shenley, I was, the high honor roll, National Honor Society, blah, 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 doing pretty good, playing football and all that mess. But, pretty much A student, et cetera. I think I was fifth in the class or sixth, something like that. Go to Carnegie Mellon, where, everybody came in the door, all the freshmen, they were already on second level calculus and physics and everything else. So I went there with the understanding that since I never knew how to study, because I never had to. So, you rock a 1600 SAT without studying, because you think, hey, I'm the man, this is no problem. Until you get to Carnegie Mellon, and everybody did that. In fact, we had a roommate who was admitted early. I think it was about 12, and he was admitted to Carnegie Mellon. We had geniuses there. But anyway, so I went there with not knowing what I did not know, and trying to cope with all these people from Poly and all these other schools. And tried to still carry the same young social life like any person as 18 years old there. Bottom line there, you get below a C average 2 quarters in a row, 2 semesters in a row, that's it. So for me, that was probably my sophomore year when it happened. That was the biggest disappointment ever, because it was total failure. It was total failure. And to that point, I never failed anything. But it was total failure. I stayed out a year, almost a little longer than a year. About a year. And interesting what made me go back to school, because at the time I was in where I was living, I was pretty much top of the food chain, if you will say. If you, back in my old neighborhood, you had a car and a job, you're at the top of the food chain. Unfortunately, what you were comparing yourself to was a bubble, and it was not being extended beyond that. So I owe my decision to return to college to a gentleman. Won't say his name. He's probably dead by now, I'm sure, because considering my age. But nonetheless, I became a technician, because I was at school for 2 years, so they considered it to be a technician working at the Westinghouse Nuclear Center at the time. And there was I had a cubicle. We were techs, and all the engineers sat on the wall, said just like where Abbott was set up. Well, the duplication room where you get prints was sat next to this one, the engineering chief design engineer's office. My cube was somewhere in Ohio. Okay. All right. This guy would get up, walk all the way to my cube, hand me a roll and say, get me a copy. But he would walk right by the copy room. And this went on for almost a year. And I went to the head of engineering and said, this is kind of crazy. He sits right there. Why do I have to get that? And his response was, well, Darryl, you're just a technician. He's the engineer.
Oh, wow.
And that
motivation.
That's how that was it. Not to mention the disappointment from my mom, et cetera, et cetera. But after that, I went back and never looked back. And yes, I did get my degree in Israel and everything else. But that's a Carnegie Mellon degree. But it was that was probably, that was a failure that I'm known most people who know me know about it, but it was probably, I consider that one of the biggest failures, because it was the first time of a major catastrophic one, because that involved money loss, family disappointment. And I was the first one to go to college in my family, but ended up being the first to graduate. And there's been many more since then. But yeah, that's a failure one. I always look back, but there was so many motivating things that made it. There was that in the summer job at the mailroom, where the head of the mailroom, not I'm working the mailroom, okay, in the U.S. Steel building in Pittsburgh, 33rd floor, and the supervisor there, he kept saying, "Oh, these young kids, they'll never amount to anything." And that was his whole thing. He would say, me and this other summer student. So, eventually when I graduated from Carnegie Mellon, and I still had my robe and cap and gown, where I went.
You had to go there and show him.
I had hit the 33rd floor in the elevator, and I waited right there. Went right to his office, and opening line was, "So you still here in the mailroom?"
And folks, if you know Gresh, you know he did that.
That's a joke. I didn't do that.
No, James said you were DJing too much. That's what it was.
That too. I did it all. I was doing it all. It was a challenge back then. I met a gentleman named Richard Johnson who became my close friend, and him and I kind of went through that whole process together. He was out of Youngstown, valedictorian. He was smarter than me, and we kind of went through some of the same experiences, and both ended up graduating from CMU, which was a good thing. So, and then there's been other things, that have happened. Obviously, you make a few bad decisions here and there, even at work. I've been fortunate and blessed to have some very good leaders and managers that were understanding, would say, okay, well, how are you going to fix it? And that just leads to, if you make a mistake, just talk about, even if you don't have the answer, it's okay. Just come with suggestions. Look, here's what happened, and I messed up. Here's what I think we can do to fix it. That's all I ever asked for. Tell me what you think. Throw some ideas out there, and together we will fix it together. But just that, hey, here, I messed up, and that's it. That's not the way it works. Not the way. Failure is a good thing. It can be a motivator. Or you could take the downside of it and let it continue to snowball, because it can snowball on you if you let it. That's why you have to get the calming mind. You have to reset and just be prepared for it. You're going to fail. What did Michael Jordan say? The reason he's successful is because he failed.
Yes, absolutely.
It's simple. And I think sports, business, the same thing is you don't know what you don't know. So you make a few mistakes along the way. And I tell you what I've learned once I got probably past 50, learn to laugh and smile. Because if you don't, that could lead to all types of physical issues.
Absolutely. Right? Yep, absolutely. So this question may be difficult. See, if you had to pick two things that someone could do in their career in order to move to the executive level, so what would those two things be? I know that there's a whole list of things, but if you had to just pick two things, what could a person do?
Get a position in finance, for one thing. Get a position in finance, somehow work in finance some way. Get involved in finance, because that's the money, and that's where you learn from. So I would say get in finance. I still think a commercial role is important, because at the end of the day, you got two components: those who make it, those who sell it, and you got the customers at the other end. And the whole idea is to satisfy the customers as best you can. But somebody has to develop it. Somebody has to present the case as to why. And but the finances, that's behind the scenes and everything. So in terms of that whole C-suite at a high level, you have to at some point get involved in the financial position. And I strongly suggest that. Strongly.
Okay. All right. So we are almost rounding up the show. I mean, I've definitely enjoyed having you on the show tonight. It's amazing that this hour has been passing by so quick. So, hey, this is just an oddball question. So when it's just you in the house and just you and your four walls, what desserts do you eat?
What desserts? Oh, hell. See, if you'd have caught me about 2 years ago, I couldn't have fit in the screen. 2 years ago, I'll tell you a whole bunch of desserts I was eating. Hell, the whole damn tray. But I slowed that down. A better question is, what bourbon do I drink? And that I can answer for you.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. So what bourbon you drink?
Willet bourbon. Willett. Willett Bourbon. That's the one. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Jefferson Ocean Age.
Okay. All right. I'm not a bourbon drinker, so I was going to write it down.
Hey, before I go, I want to say hi. I got 4 girls and a daughter, so we'll say the Renee, that's the wife. There's let me see, get them in order. Desra, Darian, Taylor, Catherine, Avery.
Now say it backwards.
I'm not stupid. Say it. I'm not stupid. Say hi to everybody.
Yes, I saw Renee on here earlier. She said, yeah, you cut out the 4-letter words. So if there was a book that was written about you, what would the title be? And on the back of the book, what would the summary say about you?
Wow. Title of the book. It'd be called No Not One. No, KNOWNOT1. Meaning you cannot know something only one time. And what that means is the back will say that through many single events, there were multitudes of derivative experiences that came through that. And this book will talk about single events that impacted his particular life that led to a branch of many other singular and multiple experiences from that. No, not one. You only do not know something one time. That's the way it is. You only do not know something one time. So, I pulled that phrase because it's funny because I just used it recently with someone, is that it's okay to not know whatever it is. And I tell this to anyone who's in the corporate life, it's okay to say you don't know. Because learning is all about from the first time you say you don't know, you go get the answer. Now you know.
Right. Yes.
Yes, right. What does Darryl Gresham drink is a question. Well, I drink Willett Bourbon. So now you know something you didn't know. But if someone asks you that question, then tomorrow, and you say, I don't know, we got a learning disorder. Because he just told you yesterday.
So you're saying all the Dallas Cowboy fans have a learning disorder because they keep cheering for a team that's never going to win.
They're going to always do that, man. I gave up. They're insignificant anymore now. But anyway, with all seriousness, I always say, you learn from learning starts from the point of something you do not know and what experience or what knowledge you gain. And with each I don't know, or with each what is that like, or with each question in life you have, the answers yield you so much more fruitful knowledge that you can have. And I kind of did that with my career, why I took roles when things I did not know. And that's it. No, not one. You only do not know something one time. Yep.
I like that. I'm definitely going to have to use that. Man, I tell you what, Gress, every time I talk to you, it's always amazing. And I told our audience that you are an awesome person, charismatic. They would really enjoy you being on the show tonight. So I appreciate you taking the time out to come on Talk Leadership with Cedrick. So thank you very much.
No, thank you. It's been my pleasure. I really like what you're doing, and it's fun. I enjoy listening to this. When other people you had on, I listened to Kenny, Ron, actually Pat last week. Pat was very instrumental in my career early on, and of course Joe Nimmers was back in the day, and so. It's good to hear and see those people, but I like this, and I like the spontaneity of it, and nothing you have to prepare for. Just talk, and we learned something, right?
Absolutely, yeah. I learned some new things about you tonight as well. So, folks, thank you for tuning in to Talk Leadership with Cedrick. Tomorrow night on Talk Leadership with Cedrick, I'm going to have another dynamic leader. Tomorrow we will have Mr. David Delafov on with us tomorrow as well. He's a marketing guy. So come on and listen to Dave tomorrow. It's 5:30 Central Time right here on my Facebook and my YouTube channel. Then at 6:30 Central Time, I'm a partner in the Black Entrepreneur Institute, and we always have a live show on Tuesday night on the Empowered Living channel. So tomorrow, tune in 5:30 here. Join me at 6:30 with the Black Entrepreneurs Institute live show, and then come right back here at 7:30 with Talk with TK, and she's going to be talking about mindset and mental performance. So join her at 7:30 Central Time tomorrow night on Talk with TK and the Mindset 180 Academy. Talk Leadership with Cedrick on the radio every Thursday at 4 p.m. Starting in November, we're going to be at 2 p.m. every Thursday at ibgr.network. Remember, as I tell you every week, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. Don't be on the menu. Good night.